So hi, thank you so much for coming. I'm Anders. I'm the co-finance and sponsorship director on the Millennium STEM executive team. And this is Sophie, the co-chair of Millennium STEM BC.
Great. Nice to meet you guys.
It's really nice to meet you too. I'd just like to ask you a few questions about your journey to STEM. So to start off, could you introduce yourself and basically what you do now currently?
Sure. My name is Yuan, Yuan Fang, and currently I'm the senior director of product management at a company called SolarWinds. What we do is we create enterprise software to monitor their network deployment for both on-prem and in the cloud. And currently, as we all work from anywhere, right? That creates a lot of complexity for the enterprises, how they manage their users' access, how they manage the security for their infrastructure, for their network, for their database, for applications. So that's what we do is give them that solution so they have always know what's going on inside and outside of their networks.
Okay, thank you so much for that overview about your company. So could you tell us about your education and how you started off in STEM?
Right. So, education-wise, I graduated from UBC, computer engineering, and I also have a executive MBA degree from China European Business School. And my entry into STEM is kind of easy. Both of my parents, they work in academia. My father is a professor in electronics engineering, and my mother is professor in mathematics. So for me, it's kind of born into this STEM-based family, and I was exposed to a lot of, they have, that's their, that's their area. So when I was growing up, they gave me some, they bought me a lot of books, so I kind of read into it, and not about learning, but really, just generally interest into. One of the big things I was interested into when I was elementary school, I still remember, is how to communicate with aliens. Right? There's a book about, and I would stay up in the night and trying to face in the right direction and trying to look at the star and try to talk to the star. Right? Those are things like like the kids would do. Right? But those are gradually evolving to more like the interest about what there are different kind of stars, or black holes, and what about them? That's how I get more and more interest into STEM areas.
Okay, thank you for that. You mentioned earlier about how you went to UBC and then you also went to China for business school. So how did you make that decision about going to another country for another school and another degree, that is?
But that's a good question, right? So one of the things that give satisfaction in the working STEM areas, you get to create technologies that changes people's life. When I graduated from UBC, my first job was working for Hughes Aircraft. What we were doing is air traffic control system. But before that is not just in Canada, everywhere else is the whole air traffic control is manual, right? Like the pilot talk to the tower, and the tower had the charts on paper, and they put the airplanes onto different trajectories and making sure that they can manage that. But one is that it's very labor intensive. Two is you can't really scale, right? Because you can't keep too many airplanes and without some kind of a safety mechanism in place, right? So you have to limit the amount of planes that you can come into and come out of given airport. So the system we built was a automated system, computerized based, back in the 90s. It's called, and that really changed the whole air traffic control system, right? Then today, the volume of air traffic control was probably 10x to what was in the late 90s, right? And I wouldn't say everything is attributed to that, but the automated air traffic control system is definitely a factor in allowing more air traffics that allowing more travel for people. The reason why I went to China was that then my second job was working for Motorola, I think you guys are used to born in the iPhone area. Wireless data come to you as a natural. Like you should have wireless access, anytime, anywhere you want. Right? Back in the 90s, that wasn't the case. Like back in the 90s was you have the broadband, the fixed broadband was just starting, right? You have broadband when you are sitting somewhere with a computer plugged into a modem. You have probably one or like up to a few megabits per second. That's what considered to be broadband. If you're on the phone, right, you're on mobile, and that was just SMS, right? Only you can do text, but you can't really do data. So in Motorola, what we developed was the first generation of wireless data. It's called the GPRS, and that was the first generation of wireless was analog, so you can talk to each other. The second generation was digital, right? You can talk to each other, you can send data. GPRS was supposed to be the 2.5G, right? Then now you can start to send some limited amount of data. So once that technology matures, and obviously, China was a huge market, right? And so Motorola want to market that technology into China, right? So then they asked anybody interested. Of course, I was born in Beijing, and that was an opportunity for me to go back to home country and bring the product that I built into that market. So that's why I went to China as a career growth opportunity. And the business school I went to as part of it wasn't a full-time degree. It was just a career development that the company see that because I was growing my career and they wanted me to have more business knowledge, and that's why the company sent me to do a EMBA.
Right, thank you so much for telling me that. I'm curious about you mentioning the development of analog to digital and that just quick process of optimization. And so what do you see for the future of technology?
Right. You see, I think things are still going a little bit of in circles. Like it started as very much the whole. You look back in history, right? We're very much a human, like a driven thinking, right? We started with people who empower and they build systems, and then they, based on not data driven. It's based on philosophical. It's based on different ruling systems, right? But then as we move into a computerized age, right? Then we become much more data driven. Right? When we make a decision, we look at data. Data is, we go from small data now to big data, right? But I think to a certain point now we're going back to this more of what the people really need, right? What is really the emotional need? What's the society? Because too much data is really making us not able to consume it, right? Because now you look at any data source, like be Twitter, like be Instagram, like be Facebook. It's a streaming that's never end. You can never say I finished reading everything, right? You have to be selective. You have to, and in many cases, those algorithms that behind the thing is telling us what we want to see, right? And it's in many areas that can be bad in the sense of we are all being influenced without even knowing, right? So now there's a lot of questions about how to make sure that technology is indeed helping us, not bombarding us, not flooding us with a lot of information, and in many ways hijacking us into a way that intentionally or unintentionally. I think that's the next step, is how to really harvest technology into the right trajectory for us collectively as a civilization.
Right. Thank you for the answer. That's very insightful. And what do you think? Do you think AI perhaps plays a role in any of this?
Definitely, right? AI, right? If you look at, see, it's a fancy term, right? Like AI, machine learning. What's really saying is you have a large amount of data, right? And if you just digest data the same way as we used to, right? Like reading it, trying to process it by human, it's not scalable, right? You cannot deal with that amount of data. So AI or ML is a way of us building algorithms that simulate what a human thinking is, and at a much faster speed, so we can digest the information. So AI, again, that artificial part is intelligence, right? It's not real intelligence in the sense of it's still based on humans' understanding of the algorithm. It's still very much based on what our knowledge is. As our knowledge get better and the AI technology get better, right? So I that's just our way of it's like a machine, right? If you are trying to farm by hand, you can only farm one, maybe a half a hectare or like a 1 hectare, season. But once you have those automated machines, now you can farm a much larger area. AI is a tool that we have. So one thing I think is key is at least in my opinion, is that AI is the tool for us, right? AI is not an entirely different thing. AI is not in parallel with our thinking. AI is just part of the tool that expand our ability.
Right. I'm just going to reference back to your work at SolarWinds. Can you describe what a typical day in your life at work looks like?
Typical day will start with many, first of all, it's fairly early in the morning. It's a Texas-based company, right? They're 2 hours ahead of me. And so many cases I have to start my day fairly early. And there's many different meetings. A job of product manager is you are the one that's make some decisions on where the product need to go in terms of directions, right? And because every company, every project has finite resources, right? So you have to tell the engineering team, and based on what you hear and based on your research on the market, based on what you hear what the customer is saying, what the competition is doing, and what the overall market is evolving into, then you build this, a roadmap on what you want the engineering team to develop. So a lot of time is spent on talking to customers, talking to sales, talking to SEs, and talking to engineering teams, and really applying that knowledge that you gained then into balancing the near-term need with the longer-term needs, and also try to draw a balance between the financial returns of the product versus the longer term competitiveness of the product, right? So a lot of time is spending on meetings and in processing the information you receive, and then some outcome of those work will be provide a business model, right? My projection is the product will grow by this many percentage in the next few quarters, and this is what I feel is a competitive landscape. Then work with engineering to bring all the innovation ideas into reality.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, we know that technology is changing a lot. It's changing rapidly. And how would you go about advising younger students like us to start into technology, and which branches to specialize in?
Right. See, one thing, at least in why I went to school, is in universities, you use very antique technologies, right? Because it's very hard to keep up with the latest, right? And when you go out of school, you discover, oh, what I learned was really dinosaur technology, right? But that really didn't matter because the technology is almost like the knowledge, right? You're not born with the technology, right? You're born or you learn is the ability to learn, right? And so that's the most important part. It's not about what technology you know, but in our industry, fortunately or unfortunately, is technology evolves very fast. What you learn as cutting edge today will become table stake 2 years from now, and it will become out of date probably 5 years from now, right? So you'll never says, I mastered all the latest technology, I don't have to learn anymore. The key thing is keep the ability to keep learning, keep refreshing yourself, and keep current, right? So that way, and also keep an open mind. Always be ready to pick up the latest and be able to quickly understand what that technology is, what's the benefit of it, and I think that's the key, right? The ability to learn is the most essential skill, not the technology itself.
When you're navigating through your university life, how did you go about, what was your methods for learning, do you think?
Yeah, I'm probably not the model student that I want other people to copy me. For me, it was really to get through university was the least amount of effort, and I was definitely not the one who would study, 18 hours a day and try to get the best possible grade. I was more looking at this for the course I'm interested in, I will spend time, but for the course I'm not interested in, I will try to spend enough time so I can pass it. Right? But one thing, if I were to go back to my university life, is I think definitely don't take that as a. I wish I would spend more time in learning things that's not just on those mandatory credit, right? Not just hit the credit that I can graduate, but really to use, one thing I learned is once you get into a professional career is, for me, I'm really in this IT or computer area, right? But there's like any other discipline will also be a factor. Right? You'll be working with customers who come from a law background. You're working with customers who are in the consumer industry, right? So I would definitely encourage students in the STEM areas to not just focusing on STEM itself, and take more electives, right? And have a broader knowledge of like be arts, like be different sciences. They all come to become very useful later in your career because you have so much so many opportunities to work with different verticals, different segments. Having some knowledge that you in school would give you an advantage, a high start compared to others. So I would, if I were to go back to university days, I would probably not do more in engineering courses. I'll probably try to do more in elective courses to broaden my knowledge.
All right. On that note, like talking about STEM is a really broad thing, and it connects with a lot of other subjects too. And given your field of work, how do you think that science, or STEM rather, connects to business, and how do those worlds overlap?
Right. So STEM, before you can say like studying a computer, that's a business, right? Like a computer or the science itself, is isolated. But now, like every discipline, like maybe I was just on a call with a colleague, and he showed me there's a new website called actually let me look at the name. Yeah, there's this website called DALL-E, DALLE. It's a project from OpenAI. So if you type in a description, a kid's playing with a water on Mars, right? And the AI algorithm will generate a drawing, like oil painting drawing, and matches that description, right? See, and that's a very cool idea, right? But one thing I want to say is, you see, this is connecting very different disciplines together, right? Before, we all need to spend, many hours learning how to draw, right? With tools like this, it's all about ideas. If I have an idea, if I want to know what to create, I don't have to learn about how to draw anymore. Right? Those kind of tools available. See, this is what STEM is doing for us. Is it allow us to be able to do a lot of the things that requires a lot of learning before. Now they're all automated. Computer is helping us to do those basic things. Now the focusing on is more what is the idea? What is you want to do with technology? How do you apply the technology to generate outcome that people desire? If you're a business, people desire to pay for. If you're in education, how do you stimulate interest, right? I think that's the part that's going to be the one that's don't view STEM or technology as a isolated piece, but view them more like a tool, more like an engine. But the more important thing is, what do you want that tool to do for you? And that tool cannot tell yourself. You need to come up with those business ideas. Then the tool will fulfill those ideas underneath the engine.
Yeah, I think that was really, I've seen that before actually, like the drawing. I think that was really fascinating. I just want to ask, like, how do you go about that innovation though, that process of thinking of a new idea and coming up with something that's like new and totally original? Or yeah.
So one is I don't want to burst the bubble, right? Like the very original idea, right? This could be I'll say is one is, don't get too hung up with too original idea. Because the reason for that is, If it's so original, that means it may not probably, there's a higher chance of it probably, won't work, right? And so a lot of times I would say is incremental improvement makes a big difference, right? So start with that, right? Start with incremental is, for example, right, in my line of work, right? When we talk to the customer, end of the day, their use case really doesn't change that much, that drastically. Like if I'm a network administrator, if I'm a web developer, if I'm an application developer, the application I'm developing today, right, is probably very different look and feel, complexity, and technology from 20 years ago. But those applications, what is it for? It's probably still for either it's for a game, whether it's for HR application, whether it's a business data processing application, those don't change that much, right? So when you look at innovation is don't always think this is going to be a groundbreaking idea, but look at it, how do I help the same people to make their life a little bit better, a little bit easier, right? Then is a lot, those smaller innovation add up, right? Because you do make their life 5% more efficient this year, you do another thing that makes their 10%. It's like a investment, right? Compound interest, right? Like if you have a 6% every year, then very like 7, 8 years, you're going to double, right? Of course, there are going to be groundbreaking ideas, like for example, like SpaceX, right? They come up with the first reusable rocket. That's revolutionized the industry. Those ideas come, once in a while, but not everyone, not every company will be in a position to do that kind of groundbreaking things. So don't limit yourself in thinking, unless I come up with a groundbreaking idea, I'm not really innovating. So that's the part I want to convey, right? So it's little innovation, it matters.
Yeah, like the optimizations of a program can really make something more efficient in that way. So what do you think in your career was one of your biggest optimizations of maybe yourself or just something in your work that you optimized?
Yeah, I mean, optimization, I'll say is maybe let me play back. Like if you're asking me is how to maximize the growth opportunities, right? I think that's really what you're asking for, right? So, for me, one of the big part was my decision to take this opportunity to go back to China and work for 10 years there, right? This really opened up my eyes because, in Canada, right, we are a Western country, large country with a very, with a smaller population, right? So in here, compared to 1.4 billion people, right, where it's a very different market, right? And so for me, right, being a Chinese native, speak the language, understand the culture, right, being able to spend time working in China, and then also understand the Western culture, understand how the technology is built, right, understand how the market needs are, the customer needs are. To me, that's very beneficial for my entire career, because then you have the exposure on both the technical front as well as the go-to-market front. You know how sales have been made, how to market the product, market the technology, and that has been very helpful for me in my career. So again, like everyone's opportunity will be unique to their own choices, their own growth path. So my for me it would be, at that time it was kind of like a bold move, right? Because even though I grew up in China when I was young, but it's not I've never worked there, right? And so that was from a career move, that's kind of bold move. But I think I would definitely do it again. And then after that, I then moved to Singapore, then moved back, right, to Canada, right? So and I did a number of different roles from start as doing the software engineering, then I did the pre-sales and marketing, right? Then I did in the last 10 plus years product management, right? So they're different jobs, but every part of the experience like add up, because engineering background help you to how to do a product marketing. So you know the technology, you can market it better, right? Then your marketing experience, your engineering experience really makes my product management skill set much better. So that's the part is don't stay in one role and try to expand into different areas, and they'll enrich your your both your appeal from your employers as well as give you this broad skill sets, and so you can grow in different capacities.
Yeah, you mentioned like moving jobs and that transiency. What would you say was the difference in the workplace culture, moving from different jobs to jobs, and how did you adapt to that?
Right, that's a great question, right? So every company is different, and they have a different like different technology, different culture, and also the company is also at the different stage of their own life cycle, right? Not all companies the same. The startup company have a very different mentality than a large Fortune 500 companies, right? Which is all very much process driven. And then there's the mid-market, mid-sized companies who is kind of in between, right? So for me, one thing I learned is the most important thing is people. Right? It's never about am I working on the coolest technology, right? Who you are working with, and the company culture, and are you able to fully be yourself and make an impact. That supportive environment is important because none of us is going to be a hero just by ourselves, right? We all need this supporting system to be in place. That when you start your career, you need to be in an environment that help you to grow, help you to learn, give you exposure to different things. So whether you're in the title and a composition is not the number one. Trust me, like those will catch up very quickly, right? So my advice to a young graduate is for your first couple jobs is really about finding a place you can truly learn, right? Learning needs support, because if your employer expect you to keep doing the same thing over and over again so that they can get the maximum efficiency and not leaving you any time to pick up new knowledge and skills, I would advise against it. I would rather go into a place that they definitely use your skill sets. At the same time, they're also viewing you as a young, as a young emerging star, and they give you time to learn, right? So that's one. The second thing is, first of all, company politics is everywhere, right? Don't be afraid of it. But at the same time, definitely work, with the teams, work for people who you enjoy working with. Don't force yourself into a position where I don't want to talk to anyone. I just want to be myself. And that to me is definitely not a good thing. You want to be in an immersive, collaborative environment. So that way you get to truly explore different things.
Yeah, I think we've heard from across these interviews that collaboration has been a really similar theme, and having a good support system is vital to doing your work. So my question is, has there been a specific mentor that has really helped you on your journey through STEM?
Yeah, absolutely. I have had a number of mentors. In fact, it's kind of hard. Almost everyone that I talk to have had the mentors in their careers, right? So it's kind of it's kind of natural. Like when you start your job, right? There's always somebody you look up to, like somebody. It could be your direct manager. It could be some senior technical staff on the team who's really giving you a lot of advices or hints and tips, so that so for me, yes, absolutely. Like every step of my career, there has been a mentor, and the mentor helped me in different capacities. My first mentor at Hughes Aircraft really, I have a basic training as coding and basic training as what the OS is, but never been on a large project before, right? So he was the one that really introduced me into how to operate in a large team environment, how to you know how to grow in terms of technical complexity. Then as my own experience grow, right? Then my next set of mentors give me different set of um, um, knowledge or leadership guidance, right? Again, it's not just limited to STEM, right? Your work STEM is just your specialty, right? But your mentor could come and as in later part of your career, your mentor probably come more from a leadership angle, right? People who help you to grow in your capacity, help you to make a bigger impact, right? Because end of the day, the more you know, you should be able to make a bigger outcome with the knowledge, with the experience. That's where the mentor comes in, is help you to understand how to elevate yourself into the next level in your career.
Yeah, talking about those levels, this is kind of a fun question. How would you graph your trajectory of your life in terms of past, present, and future?
Well, that's like a 10,000 feet question, right? I would say is if I look back in my career, right, and I would say is um, um, it's really about the impact, right? Impact in the sense of impact to yourself, impact to the company that you work for. But more important for me, right now is, am I working on a product that's going to have some lasting impact, to the customers I serve, right? And ideally is I want to look back when I retire is I've done a few good things. There's a couple projects I'm proud of, like, and this creating those lasting impact to people, right? Those are the things I would like to be, is not about, like, am I growing in titles? Am I growing in salary? Those are important. But if my real motivation right now is really about, am I working on a project that give me that satisfaction that I've done something good?
Right, thank you so much. I think this is a good place to conclude it. And I just want to say thank you so much for coming out today and allowing me to interview you. So that is the end of our interview for Unlocking STEM.